Hear me clearly?
Yes, sir. Yes. Just a minute.
Okay,
As the recording will start, we will start the session. Yes. Thank you.
sure.
Good evening and welcome to all for this our first session of Dravidian Temple Architecture Style course. This is our heritage, and I also humbly welcome to Babu sir here as a resource person and guide for us for these 7 days. Uh, uh, First of all, just I want to give introduction about Shiv Shankar Babuji. Shiv Shankar Babu sir is a techno-functional banker with 39 plus years in financial service industry with a passion for mentoring, travel, and spreading heritage awareness. After 15 years in Indian Overseas Bank, he worked in IT in companies like Hexaware, Wipro, and other companies. And for past 4 years, doing domain consulting through his own company, Techno Bankers. He handles mentoring sessions for final year B students for campus placements and in leading institutions like SRM University, National Engineering College, Kovilpatti, and then St. Xavier's Catholic College, Nagarkoil. Supporting final year placement guidance for IIT Madras, sessions on industry expectations, CV preparation, and mock interviews also. Then he is renewing his passion for Indian history. It's ancient commerce, temple architecture, epigraphy, iconography by attending seminars and reference book. See what tremendous this we can say diverse or diversion. So it's a too good thing. मैं अगर मैं अपनी भावनाओं को हिंदी में अगर व्यक्त करना चाहूंगा तो ये हमारे लिए खुशी की बात थी कि वो बिल्कुल दूसरे दूसरे दुनिया में आ गए, तो ये हमारे लिए बहुत खुशी की बात है. He has traveled extensively through Tamil Nadu, the land of temples, and these are documented in detail in his Facebook tour albums. Then he is part of Tamil Heritage Trust, which focuses on spreading heritage awareness. तमिल हेरिटेज जिनको पता नहीं है वो सभी लोगों को मैं रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ, पर्टिकुलरली महाराष्ट्र के हम सभी लोग जिनको इसके बारे में ज्यादा पता नहीं था. मुझे भी अभी कुछ ही महीने पहले पता चला, ये भी ऑनलाइन की दुनिया की वजह से, कोरोना में ये सभी जो ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज शुरू है उसकी वजह से. आई हम्बली रिक्वेस्ट टू ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट्स, प्लीज टेक द प्रॉपर इंफॉर्मेशन. तमिल हेरिटेज ट्रस्ट का जो कार्य है उसके बारे में जरूर जानकारी लीजिए. इट्स एन एक्सलेंट वर्क और हम भी कुछ इस तरह से कर सकते हैं कि हर स्टेट में इट्स अ रोल मॉडल फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस. तो ये भी जरूर आप देखें. And sir is also a part of this Tamil Heritage Trust, which focuses on this spreading heritage awareness. He is one of the Tamil Heritage Trust trained guide for Mahabalipuram and Kanchipuram. He is involved in Tamil Heritage Trust site seminars, trips to heritage location for 6-7 days with 25 plus preparatory lectures by participants in prior 6 months and completion of them as a tour guide book for on-site appreciation. Yeah, covered Bhubaneswar, Badami, Sanchi, Kanchi, Tanjavur, and so forth. He also does presentations on heritage subjects at groups like Sthapatya Kala Parishad, Tirupati, IITTM, Nellore, CCVA Cultural Center Vijayawada, University of Kerala, and videos are available in his YouTube, Babu for Heritage. If you just put the name Babu for Heritage in Google, you will get all the information. Then his YouTube channel, this Babu for Heritage, is a go-to place for heritage videos where captured, where curated content is available under 50 plus categories. He is also working on entry-level guide for beginners on Tamil Nadu temple architecture, features and developments to be released soon. He has attended courses in ancient scripts like Tamil Brahmi, Vetlittu Grantham, to read inscriptions, and at present studying PG diploma in archaeology from International Institute of Tamil Studies, Chennai. So see, this is the passion. मैं यहाँ पर हिस्ट्री के कई सारे प्रोफेसर है, कई 29 आर्किटेक्ट्स यहाँ पर इस सेशन में हैं और इंडिया के 22 स्टेट से और इंडिया के बाहर से, यूएस से, मलेशिया से और कई सारे कंट्रीज से स्कॉलर्स यहाँ पर है. तो मैं सभी को ये रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ, अगर हमारे दिल में हमारी इस भारतीय विरासत को जानने की अगर सच में चाहत है तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं, इसका एक जीता जागता उदाहरण हमारे सामने है. And he's Shiv Shankar Babu. He's a role model for all of us. So I humbly welcome to sir, and I request to start our today's session. Yes, please, sir. Sir, we can't hear you. Please unmute yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you all. Pranam. It was a bit lengthy introduction, maybe, but it is good to get the appreciation from a multi-pronged scholar like you. In the young age, you have experimented a lot of areas and invested your effort on spreading heritage with such a beautiful program sequences. And I'm happy to be part of this sequence, and I'm blessed that I am able to support you in spreading the heritage awareness through your group. And definitely I can leverage some of my links, and then it will be a good win-win situation for this. Definitely we can continue many programs, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir.
Sure. So before going into the presentation, a few requests and etiquette points for this. One, except the person who is presenting, that is me, unless there is no issue or something which you are seriously getting affected or something, better avoid questions. What you can do is put your questions in the chat box as and when it arises, and leave it as it is. In the end, I will try to answer the chat box questions first, and then if I have time, I will attend to the other ones. So this way, we can have a fairly comfortable session, and I will cover around 45 minutes of my presentation now. Later on, you have around 15 minutes of question time to discuss and go into the details. Now let us go into the presentation mode. I'm sharing a screen. Give me a minute. Good. Are you able to see the presentation window? Title?
Yes, sir.
What?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. So from this is a challenge in Google. So from now onwards, I won't be able to see the chat or any of this unless there is some issue. Okay. So if any problem is there, you please call me. Otherwise, I'll be continuing on the presentation. So this is constraints of Google. When we are sharing, presenting, it's very difficult to see the other controls. Okay. So today's presentation this week is going to be on the heritage of Dravida temple architecture. People fondly call it as DTA. Or some of the people here have got some concerns on Dravida term. So usually I call this as Sita, South Indian temple architecture, because this is common for all the 4 states. So the focus here is, this is a vast subject. Because of this, we are going to cover it in primarily with respect to temples of Tamil Nadu only. Probably at a later point of time, we may expand it to Kerala and Karnataka in similar details. So here, we are going to cover how from a small, humble huts and other things, it gradually expanded into caves, rock-cut caves, and then monolithic temples, and then structured temples, and went into the pinnacle by 10th, 11th century. So this is a study we are going to make over a period of 7 days on a daily basis. This is the tentative agenda which we have prepared for the 7 days. And first day, evolution of temple. Second day on the Vimana and buildings. Third day, Vimana superstructure. And fourth day, Mandapas. Fifth day, Gopura. So next 4 days, we are going to go very deep into the detailed components of the temple and how they are derived or evolved with the relevant pictures and some commentary. So once you go through this, in the last 2 days, we are going to cover how temple evolution progressed during the various dynasties, what are the innovations that were attempted over a period, and we will see some unique temples at the end. So this is the agenda. Before going into the agenda, this is the introduction. I have kept it for the convenience of Bhujang. I will share it in the WhatsApp so that if you have any connection, you can see this. So before we start this, I would like to acknowledge the sources from which I have taken and then helped in preparing this. One is Google Endeavor. Whenever we want, he gives the maximum pictures. Wikipedia Pujari. And even if Google Endeavor is there, unless we go through Wikipedia, we won't be able to do this. Pujari is more important than the Endeavor. So the advantage of Wikipedia is there. He gives collated information. Sometimes it is faulty, sometimes wrong. But what is interesting is that the kind of references it gives you a good insight into the content. I have taken images from various sources, and primary books referred are Temple Architecture, and my inspiration is Adam Hardy, and to a certain extent detailed accounting by Michael Muser and Taki, the reference book, Lower Dravida Desa, and some of the other Tamil scripture books. And this has been greatly aided by association with the Tamil Heritage Trust and the site seminars. We go every year to multiple places and attending the lectures by leading scholars in this area, Professor Shankara Narayanan, who is the head of Sanskrit department in Tirupati, Professor Manoj Gundana, who is one of the reference persons in and authority in Hoysala and Chalukya temples. And also fairly, we have our own close network group with peers like Soundari Madam and Surendran and others. When we discuss several things, we get to know a lot of insights, and this is how our knowledge improves. So I thank all for this one. Today's presentation is about what I have understood about the South Indian temple architecture. And I am trying to present this in a simple way so that beginners like me can understand it quickly. So there might be faults or there might be some issues. And if it is any error, it might be on part of my understanding. And if there are some very good things, please appreciate the books from which I have taken. Just to set the context, we are thinking of the target audience. We had a wonderful interactions for more than a week, getting introduced and other things. So I understand that the target audience knows basics of Hinduism, gods, and then some amount of temples, have basic understanding of who are all the kings of Tamil Nadu. When I say Chola or Chera, I don't think you will be blinking. Next. We are not covering some of the areas of traditional temple architecture because it will be confusing. Ideally, it is suited for level 2. This we had a detailed discussion in the chat in the last 1 week when we did the expectation setting. So we are not covering temples outside Tamil Nadu, and then not going deep into religious aspects like puja or festivals and other things. And then we are not going into the sculptures because that is a subject by itself. And also a very brief mention of Vastu, components, measurements, and then ratios, and how this actually built by Sthapatis, because that itself is around 50%, and you won't be getting any value, primarily because our objective is to appreciate the art and then congratulate the beautiful work done by Sthapatis. So what we will be covering here is how temples evolve, the units of the temples and components of vimanas, mandabas and gopuras, how the temple engineering happened over a period of time, and many of the iconic temples that are available in Tamil Nadu. So after going through this course, I am sure you will be able to quickly identify the shapes of Vimana, various types of Vimana, shapes of Shikara, and then if you go to a temple, you will be able to identify that the Garbhagriha was done by Pallavas, and then Mandapa was developed by Cholas, and then like that, you'll be able to identify what is the timeline of the temple. And this is primarily done by knowing the component names and which components were developed during which dynasties, and also some idea on how temples are constructed and some specific names, some of the names for special temples. In this presentation, I am consciously trying to avoid using terms and instead of it trying to use more of concepts, so that once you understand the concepts, it is easy to learn the terms by just referring to any book or website. So what is more critical is the underlying logic or the fundamental things. Once you are very clear in the fundamentals, you'll be able to proceed along this on your own. So before doing this, let us start with the pranams to the Shilpis who made all the Devalayas, the temples. Usually whenever we talk about a movie, we always talk about the director and other things, and we never talk about the hero much. We talk about directors also. But unfortunately, when we talk about temples, we always talk about the sponsor kings who made this and not the key actors. So let us think on the background, the Sthapatis who have worked to make this happen, and offer our pranams to them. This is one of the Sthapatis who made a beautiful temple in Koneri Rajapuram near Kumbakonam. To become a Sthapati is not a easy job. It is not a BE degree in civil or engineering or construction or something. We need to learn both. We need to read about facial expressions, the measurements. You need to be clear in body language, and then you need to know about ornaments, dance mudras, structural engineering you need to know, and what type of rocks, and then what type of tools to chisel. And then when you shape animals, you need to understand the animal anatomy. And then for coloring and bonding of the rocks, you need to know chemistry. And nowadays, the latest Sthapatis do the design and drawing in AutoCAD, Lightroom, and other things. So it is a very, very multifaceted things. So we can't be a Sthapati, but we can appreciate the work the Sthapatis have done. So our pranams to the Sthapatis, and before that, this is the Vimana which has been taken by Vibhishana. This sculpture is in Srirangam. Now, day one, we will cover the following subjects. How temple evolution happened from small huts to the grand temples. This is the theme today. In this, we are covering the following areas: how temples evolved and what are the materials used, the shapes used in temples, some amount on agamas and documentation, so that you understand. These are all some of the things have been fine-tuned. This is not normally found in my earlier presentations. So based on feedback and interaction and some of the requests made in the last 1 week, I had done some amount of customization. And then how simple temples got into big types of styles of temples, and then temples' basic building blocks and how it went into a very, very complex situation. And how do you visually see this? So out of this, since this is the first day and then we are starting a little late, I will try to cover maximum. Otherwise, you can always continue on next day and then catch up. So how the worshipping the supreme force evolved from a very basic Kanduk type of worship, where early man, even before Linga, worshipped small shafts of wood and in a wooden temple, no structure and other things. And from there, we have evolved into a grandest lingam and then decorated. This is during the special day where the lingam is decorated with rice and all this, and then it is given to the devotees. So let us see evolution of temples in Tamil Nadu. Primarily, I am focusing on Tamil Nadu perspective because this is where the relevance is. The timelines are slightly different and then slightly realigned from the general timelines of India. So, early men, they didn't have any gods, but what were gods to them were some things which they could not understand or comprehend. So nature, sun, they don't have any comprehension why it rises, or moon, river, mountain. So that is what they were worshipping first. Then they started identifying weapons. So whoever is having the weapon, he is the king. And these weapons are also worshipped along with the king or the leader of this. So that is how the symbolic representation. And slowly, the mother worship also started from this. And they shifted over from the open area or unstructured worship into worshipping the weapons or the idols in natural caves where they were living. If they had 4 caves or 1 cave will be reserved as a temple. Then once they shifted over to plains and started cultivating and then shifted over to farm-based living, many of the temples get shifted into under the tree with or without roof, that kind of temples. So this kind of temples are still available in many of the villages. Later on, when they improve the structure, people started building homes in wood or mortar or just mud, or later using brick to build the houses. The same kind of structure was used for temples also. Then the original definition or the original living in the caves is still there in the mind. He always wants to go back to your original thing. Like the baby or the boy wants to go back to the womb. He wants to go back to the natural cave. So wherever they could do, now they have got the chisel and other things, and they can do a lot of things with stone. So they cut in natural crevices into caves, and that become temples. And that is where they tried reflecting whatever temples were there in the wooden mortar. The next thing is, instead of going to the hills, they started cutting hills into small blocks, and then visualize temples as a single thing around this. So whatever is not looking like temple with a plan, they removed it, and they had one single rock kind of a temple. Some examples are there in Mahabalipuram and in deep south in Pandya country. Once they started familiarizing with more tools, so this, instead of going into the mountains or hills, they started cutting hills into small blocks, and then experimented and started building like how they did it earlier in wooden mortar. They started building using stone blocks. This is the revolution, and this is where it happened. And from there, they built a multi-story. This is somewhere around 7th century. they started building stone and structured temples. From there, it moved fast, multi-story temples, and then now the latest technology is concrete. So you can design whatever way you want and then do temples in a different way. But interestingly, we don't see any of these temples now, primarily because the wood, mortar, and brick slowly decays over a period of 200 years. So what we get, one of the oldest temples available in Tamil Nadu is Salvan near Mahabalipuram, where this is a 5th, 6th century Muruga temple. This is where the spear, which is worshipped as the god. The interesting part is this basement has got a foundation which is relating to the Sangam period, to 200, 300 or something BC kind of measurements. So this is one of the oldest temples that is available in Tamil Nadu. From here, the progression is, all the other models are available in Mahabalipuram. From here up to the concrete usage, to the latest Shripuram Golden Temple, which is available near Vellore. So this gives a brief overview of how temple worship progressed in Tamil Nadu from the earlier BC and early human days up to the current term. Now we go to the next step of Vimana forms evolution. Even during the 3rd century BC in Sanchi and other areas, even nearby in Andhra Pradesh, Amaravati and other stupis, there are evidences of buildings and temples with multiple tiers and arches and other things. So we know that such temples, as well as the palaces and everything, existed with multi-story, with very good ornamental arches and chaityas. But most of them were probably in bricks and mud and wood and other things. So we are not able to find many now. From here, this has evolved to a fantastic, very, very finely carved Vimanas. This is Tirukonam temple near Kumbakonam. Next, before going into the temple architecture, let us understand this is primarily from the Sthapati point of view. Whenever we talk about temple architecture, there is a triangle involved. On one side, we have the Sthapatis who talk a different language. Their concepts are different. On the other hand, the academicians, historians who talk about temple architecture, they use a slightly different language. On top of it, we have the architects who are the current day practitioners, and then they talk a slightly different language. So what I have been putting here is a confluence of the three views, and wherever possible, I try to put the relevant views here. What I am showing here is the view from the Sthapatis, where they are having the shapes and the attributes. So some of the shapes are repeatedly used in temple architecture. Okay, so we'll see what are the attributes of this in terms of shape, which god is associated, what is the character, what kind of action it associates, and what are the devas for which the shapes are used. First shape is called Nagara shape. Don't associate with Nagara temples. This shape is also called as Nagara. It can be used anywhere in India. So they basically, it is square, rectangle with the sharp edges, basically 90-degree corners. It is associated with Brahma and Satvik, happy thing. It is creation, Srishti, and then Saumya are very, very passive devatas. Typically, this kind of shapes are used. The next category of shapes is the short angles, like octagon and then hexagon and any polygon beyond that. This is called Dravida shape, and it is attributed to Vishnu. and it is Rajasthan protection, or it is typo is Sthiti, this is Sambhava, and it is Ukra Devadas. Very aggressive people gets this kind of Dravida shapes. Third component is a Vesara, normally without any angles, circle or variations of circle are called Vesara shapes, circle, ellipse, apsidal, and it is attributed to Shiva, Tamasa in the Samhara mode, and it is for Ugra Devata, it is for destroying Devatas kind of thing. So, depending on what type of temple, what type of Devata, or what type of character, they use different shapes. So, these shapes are being repeatedly used in multiple areas or multiple components of temple architecture. So, we need to keep in mind so that wherever you see this concept should come to you. Primarily in Linga concept, if you know the Linga, the first, earlier it was a large shaft, and then later on this got defined into a 3-part shaft, where one part is buried below the ground, which is typically square, and the part that is covered by the pita is in octagon shape, and the part that is visible, the Bana part, is circular in shape. This is called Rudrabhaga, this is Vishnubhaga and Brahmabhaga. Again, this comes from the same concept. If you see this is implemented in lingas, this is implemented in pillars also. So some of the pillars are called Rudrakanta or other thing. So typically it will have 3 parts, the square part on the bottom, and then the 6 or 8 parts Vishnubhaga in the middle, and there is a culminating in a circular Rudrabhaga. If you go to Vimanas also, in some of the Vimanas, later Vimanas, this concept is also implemented here. This is the Airavadeswara Vimana, where you see in the corner Karnakutas, where normally only square type of temples are there. This is called small temples. The corner will always have square temples. We will see this later. So here, there as a variation as a linga, they have changed it. This is square, Brahmabhaga, and this is octagon, Vishnubhaga, and the top one is a circular Rudrabhaga. So there also they have tried to implement the linga concept. If you go to the interior of the temple, when you see the Vimana, inside it is bowl. There also they apply this concept. But the bowl is not uniformly structured. This is the top-up view of a Gangaikonda Chodishwaram temple. So if you see from this look, the Vimana starts as a square, and gradually as it's concrete, it changes into a octagon, and then it again compresses, and finally ends in a circular one. Brahmabhaga, Vishnubhaga, and Rudrabhaga, and on top of it, the Kalasa and Shikara will be there. So this is repeatedly used in all designs to reflect this. Now, the next part is to give a background on where did they get all this knowledge to structure and then build templates. Some of them, they have been trying, if you know this, from at least from 3rd century before, there have been some structured, beautiful temple architecture happening in India in detail, and there has been rules, agamas, and other things. In earlier time, they used to be coming up as a detailed over the mouth, the slokas in Sanskrit and other things. And probably around 6th to 7th century, it started codifying into written documentation. That is where we get the references. So the agamas, many of the agamas, later agamas, started from South India, where they started organizing it, and particularly temple architecture related agamas. So Agamas, they talk about how to reach God. It has got 4 parts. The third part is the Kriya Pada, where it talks about how do you pray to the God and what is the structure, what kind of temple you should be going, how the temple is structured, and what is the procedure. So in some of the Shaiva Agamas, we have around 28, only some are available. And Vaishnava, a lot of Agamas are available, but they are broken into 2 major groups, Vaikasana and Pacharatra. Shakta, the Shakti cult, has got around 64 Agamas, and we have any number of Puranas. So all this talk something about the temples, how it is structured. This is the big picture. So I have tried to put this as a Venn diagram in a mathematical way so that people understand this. So many of these Agamas focus on Vastu Shastra, full Vastu Shastra, like how it is structured, how temples are built, what is the Vastu, and what is good, what is bad kind of a thing. And there are certain books or Agamas which focus on Devalaya Shastra, primarily focus only on temple related structures. And there are certain books which are Pratima or Shilpa Shastra related scriptures. If you see the example. So, what we find here is this area where all your definitions about temple architecture are done. So, you need to collate everything and see the temple architecture. Vastu Shastra may cover about Vastu plus temple architecture. Devalaya may talk about some architecture and some puja vidhis and temple architecture. Shilpa Shastra, a part may contain some of the components. So, if you see some examples, Agamas, pure Vastu Shastra kind of Agamas or Vastu Vidya, Manushalaya Chandrika, they talk about Vastu and how to build houses for dwelling. If you go to Devalaya Vastu, you have many texts. The Purva Kamika Agama is one of the oldest texts, around 3rd century, where the Kriya Pada talks about a lot of verses about what are the type of temples, how they will be built, what is the measurements, ratios, classification, everything in detail. Later on, Maya Mata, somewhere around 6th, 7th centuries, was containing a lot of sudras from the Purva Kamika itself. And it was further refined into Kashyapattam at a later point of time. Around 11th to 14th century, Manasara became a definition. So, Maya Mata talks about 6 types of Vimanas and Kashyapa around this one, whereas Manasara others talk about 14th tier and other things, and lot of other embellishment. So as and when they get more knowledge, it is refined and a more detailed next version of the Shastras come in with more variations. So all these are typically Dravida temples, and these define Dravida temples related things. These definitions are found in only in South India. This is where these are the, now you understand why it is called Dravida temple architecture. So the key pattern for this is Mayan, who is the celestial architect who has written it. And similarly, there is one more celestial architect, Vishwakarma, and who was supposed to written Vishwakarmiyam. This is the North Indian temple architecture script. There may be more, and we are not going into North Indian Agamas in this section. There are some more Agamas which are primarily focusing on Pratima Rakshana, which is Saraswati Chitra Karma, Brahmiya Chitra Karma, Sakalatikaram. Sakalatikaram focuses on all definitions. Tattvanidhi, which talks about Dhyana Solas for the slokas for the sculptures. But again, there is some relevance to temple architecture on what kind of bhutas, what kind of ganas, and what kind of things we need to put it in temples. So this also forms the basis of the architecture here. Let us talk briefly about one of the things, the Maya Mata, which is one of the prevalent basis for Dravida temple architecture. Most of the other texts take the basis from here and expand and add more variations. So it contains 5 major breaks. One is about Vastu. Vastu on what kind of sites are there and how to do site inspection to identify the right kind of a soil, right kind of environment, right kind of a thing. There are detailed things like digging a pit and then again filling it and see whether it fills up or overflows, and identifying the stability of the stone. So like that, there are things, and how to do fencing, how to do measurements, and what kind of measurements we'll be using in the buildings. And Sankusthapana. Sankusthapana is nothing but identifying the true east, so that the temple alignment, most of these are direction driven. The way the things will look, the deities, the structures are direction driven. So we need to know the true east, because it changes from place to place according to latitude and longitude. And so they need to identify the true east and south as well as north of the particular location. So they do put a stick and then identify the shade it is making, shadow it is making over a period of time, and identify where exactly is the alignment. So this is how in many temples on particular days of a year, the sun rays fall on the Garbhagriha or some activity happens. And then again they do drawings, mandalas, and then define for this type of temple, this is the level, this is the drawing, this is the detail, this is the kind of devatas who will go into this corner. And then what kind of villages and towns are there. So we are not going detail into this section. Primarily in this week, we will be covering more on this part. Devalaya constructions, how many stories it can be, what are the ratios based on the Garbhagriha width, what is the classification of foundations, and then the other parts, Adhisthana, and then Prastara, pillars, and then roof, and how to do joints, and how to do the tiers, first level, second level. And then for first story to fourth story, how the components should be calculated and how they should be aligned, what are the valid combination, all these details are there. And then the roofs, and then prakaras, gopurams, and the mandapas. So this is where the details, they have gone into extensive details in around 3,300 slokas. The last two parts talks about Manushalaya, how to build temples and palaces for four classes of people. And the final section talks about Pratima Lakshana, how Vahanas are to be structured, how beds as well as the seats, tables, chairs, Linga, how it is defined, and the Linga Pida, how it is defined, and the Jiranotra, how do you do, like the renovation of a temple or a structure or something, and the iconography of various idols, how it is done. So this is how a typical Vastu and Shilpa Shastra book likes. But mostly these components, many of the components are for the architects, and we are reading from a connoisseur point of view. So we need not go into measurements. We need not go into the complex term defense and then remember them in mind. What we should do is understand the various basic components, understand why they are there, what kind of beauty or functionality they are adding to the whole structure. This is our objective of learning Dravida temple architecture in this session. Now, the next part is how the various temple styles arrived. So many of you by now know the three basic temple styles, Dravida, Nagara, and then Vesara, and the various regional varieties on that. Before that, let us go little more backwards and see how earlier people lived in prehistoric times. They are having this kind of a cupola kind of thing, monolithical thing, and then they had pyramid type of dwelling. They had a beehive kind of a multi-story kind of apartments. They had huts. they had square buildings with roof, all kinds of designs. Even after coming to plains and even after maturing, this form is still there in the back of the mind. So when they designed the first basic temples, they were square boxes with no superstructure on top. But later on, gradually, they started, these components become superstructure, and they acquired a ornamental superstructure on top. So when it came, it comes with different designs. One is a square plan. The basic plan is, the foundation is square and with a layered top. Instead of having flat roof, they did it in 3 layers. This is one form. The other one, no layers, but a nice amalaka or a bulbous thing on top. The third component is like a hut here. Like this, you have a raised one, and then you have a four corner type of one hut. The fourth design is in apsidal form, where it is like an elephant sitting, the full profile. So this is an apsidal base and an apsidal kind of on top. The fourth one is the square top and like a wagon kind of a thing. Earlier, they used to have a lot of wagons, the ones drawn by horses as well as the. So they were having this kind of a shape. So this shapes become standard, and then it was repeatedly used in many temples. The chaityas and other things, they used it with this design. This is very old, and from even 3rd century BC, this design is there. The last more mature form is the square Nagara or Dravida Shikara, where the polygon, the square metamorphosed into polygon and octagon, hexagon kind of various forms. When these basic temples were trying to become bigger, so if you just take it bigger, beyond a point it becomes too tall and then it becomes unmanageable. So the more tall you make it, you need to make it broader also. So let us see how they tried to achieve it in 3 different areas. In the southern side, this is the basic temple. Okay. This is we have a square base, pyramidal roof that is in lattices, and with many temples ornamented in this. So when they want to make a bigger temple, what they add is, you have the central tall temple, and around this they put 1 layer of haras, and then they add 1 layer of 1 more haras. Like that, they're adding components so that while it is becoming taller, if the entire temple is like this, it will look ugly. So they also expand the base, they also expand the area so that it is smooth, bigger, and with more ornament. This is how the method of aggregation is happening. Let us see how it is happening in north. Northern temples are typically in this way, like a banana, where it shapes and curvilinear like this, and with a tall shikara. The type of shikara is different here, and the way the lines, this is horizontal lines, this is vertical lines. Okay, so northern cruciform kind of a base, square or plus or kind of a thing, convex roof, and many temples of various heights. Okay, this is how it is done. When we want to expand this temple into bigger temple, the way is, you have a central big temple, and then around this you add 4 smaller height temples, half temples, and again add some more smaller temples of little more smaller height. So this is how the aggregation happens in northern India. In central India, the logic is different, and where we have circular, apsidal, star, and base kind of structure, and we have a mix of Nagara, Dravida roofs, and we have multiple sanctums. So that is central India. Now let us see, now we understand how the aggregation works from a small temple to a bigger and larger temple. And let us see how this aggregation has triggered multiple forms of Nagara, Dravida, Vesara, and the regional variations. We are familiar with this six models with the square or apsidal or rectangular bases, and the tops vary with the varying shapes. This is what we saw in the last slide. These are the basic minimal tuples. When the aggregation happens, the aggregation happened in multiple ways. One is the Famsana or the Kadamba-Nagara type. Famsana is a North Indian model. Kadamba-Nagara is normally used in the middle or Vesara area. So where the layers become more ornamental with some more area, and later on it split into three components with the central line and the edge line called Karna and other things. So this is one variation. And for some of the Shakta and other temples, and for some of the variations, they use Famsana type of sun. And the second variation is when you aggregate this temple, when you add more length and more columns, so it becomes a lengthy one. Okay, and with the Kana, Karana, Amlaka, and then you have three layers, and then it becomes tall. But again, beyond a point, you can't make it taller and taller, and then it becomes unstable. So what they are doing is the next variation. This is Vallabhi. Vallabhi is normally used for Shakta temples, two-sided like a wagon, and then there are small temples around it. This is normally used in the north as a wagon type of temples, and this is used for Shakta cult. In south, like we saw earlier, this is the aggregation of the square plan and the polygon top with adding more and more mini temples. Most of the temples we are going to see here are of this type only. Then in north, there is one more variation of Famsana. This is happening around the 7th, 8th century, and this is around 11th, 12th kind of a century. Samavarna kind of a variation where instead of having a 4-plane structure, they broke it into each plane, they broke it into 3-dimensional area, and it is like a diamond. This is called Samavarna, diamond cluster sloped on all the 4 sides. If you see most of the later Gujarat and North India mandapas, the mandapas will be of Samavarna type. Then from the Latina, they wanted to make it big, and then they moved into Shekari kind of a model where edifices or small temples are added all around to make it big and taller. This is one way of doing it. The other way which they did in Vesara or in the central area is instead of adding varying height small temples, all over the place they added stacks of same size mini temples. So in the bottom it will be 3 or 4, and gradually the size of the mini temples will be getting reduced. It will be like a bottle stacked together into a temple. It is a beautiful one. It is called Bhumicha. Normally, Bhopal area and the central area, this is one of the predominant architecture. Finally, the mature Vesara style is the Karnataka, where the square plan is rotated into a stellate plan with multiple layers and multiple. So this is a combination of this plus this. So this is how, from a simple top and a simple plan, it evolved into a most complex forms in Dravida, Vesara, and Nagara. So we are seeing some examples. For South Indian temples, this you know the familiar one. For North Indian, the basic model is the Latina, which we said that it is like a banana with vertical stripes, or a kakra with convex structure. The second variation is combination of these two in the Karnataka Vesara temples. Then the Latina transformed into aggregation form into Shekari temples, where a lot of small edifices are added into a more complex form. This is Khajuraho. And this is the attribution of Bhumija by adding smaller things. So you can clearly see how the smaller temples are stacked together to form a beautiful base. So these are all North India. When it came to, this is the fourth one, Samavarna, the diamond top, where you can see that in many of the mandapas, this is the type of models it is used. In Odisha, they are making variations of this, and this is called Rekanagara, and the variation of the wagon wall type of thing is called Vallabhi in North India and Kakra in Odisha. And the third one is the pedestal kind of unlayered things, which is Famsana in northern name and Pida, called as Pida in southern. So these are all some of the examples of various styles of Indian architecture. So primarily why we are spending some time is that you should know the differences, and then only you will be understanding the complexity of each of this. A quick comparison. Dravida is normally, the Dravida, you can say that it is South Indian, Vesara is in Middle India, and Nagara is North India. It is better to do that than shape. So typically the sanctums are square with a pyramid and with a cupola. It can be a square, octagon, round, or wagon top. Okay, so Dravida doesn't mean that it needs to be an octagon. Mandabas are there, but no tops. And you have very, very, very big prakaras, which are missing in Nagara temples. Dwarapalakas are there. Whereas when you go to Nagara, this is a curvilinear tower, and then you have a crown with the amalaka, not in the shape. The standard always it is amalaka, and mandapas are in a line, and there are no boundary wall. Instead of Dwarapalaka, usually you find Ganga and Yamuna with Mithinas. When I come to Middle India, in Vesara or in some amount of Odisha, you have sanctum plans in varied oval, circular, multi-pointed, stellar, everything. And the tower can be a mix of this, anything. It can be a combination of anything. And the crown also can be a combination of anything. You see a lot of this kind of temples in the Pattadakal and other areas where a lot of experimentation has happened. Mandabas, they had a different kind of an ornamental mandabas with circular things. And sometimes there is a presence of boundary wall. So this is, in a nutshell, the difference between Nagara, Dravida, and Vesara. So final section, we are going into the temple units expansion. So what was a small temple here? Let us see how it has expanded into a grand temple structures. So before this, we need to see the basic components of a South Indian temple. Now we have stopped about generic, and from this point onwards, it is mostly Dravida temples. Okay, in common across all the four states. So if you see the basic units of the temple, you have a Gopuram, you have a Dvajastambam, we have a Balipidam, and we have the Vahana Mandapa, Maha Mandapa, Artha Mandapa, and then you have the sanctum. So in a Shiva temple, this is associated with multiple types of lingas, Thola Linga, and then Dvaja Linga, Jivatma, and then it is associated with Paramatma, Akanta Lingam. Garbhagruham is associated with the Paramatma in the philosophical concepts. Other way of looking at a temple, the horizontal components, is when you have a person lying, okay, the 6 chakras or the yoga chakras aligned with the temple. This is another way of visualizing it. These are all earlier visualizations, and then it is easy for you to remember this. So Mooladhara is here, Swadhisthana is here, and then Manipura is here. Anaha is Mahamandapa, Visuddha is here, and then Agna Chakra is in the sanctum sacrum. This is one way of viewing the temple complex as a human being with all the chakras. So let us see whether this logic works. Let us take a big example where the Pragadiswara big temple in Tanjavur. This is a sky view. So we are clearly saying that this is getting beautifully aligned, the foot near Gopura and all the mandapas getting aligned here, and then the sanctum sanctum near the head. So this is how the length or the ratios may be differ, but this is how the layout happens. When we see temples, when we talk about temples, let us be very clear on the terminology. Temple means the full complex. Okay, this is how I am training. This has got three major building components. Any building in a temple normally can be attached to any of these three components. One is Vimana, meant for ideals in sanctum with one. So there will be only one entrance. It can be in any of these forms, three side closed with the costas, and there may be a pyramidal tower on top. Some of the old damaged things, there may not be any tower and it will be closed. Okay, this is a Vimana. Now the next building type is Mandapa. Mandapa is primarily not for the god, it is for the devotees to stand, and then it is for the functions. And there are two types of mandapas, ones which are attached to the Garbhagriha as a sequence for various functions, or it may be outside disconnected in different functions. And in South India and particularly in Tamil Nadu, there are no pyramidal towers on top of it. So how many mandapas you see? You have so many connected mandapas, Artha mandapas, and an Antarala, Maha mandapas you see with no tower. And you see some of the other mandapas here, Nandi mandapa and Nirtha mandapa, and so many mandapas here, Prakara mandapas with no tower. The third type of building block is Gopuras. This is gateway to the temple complex. And this is base to Shikara. So unlike here where you can have any shapes, the shape in a Gopura is always rectangular. Pyramidal towers like Vimana, and there is instead of one entrance, there is two entrances as a gateway, and it is linked to the four-side Prakara walls. So this is how the Gopuram looks like. So you have in Tanjavur, we have two Gopurams, one the outer Gopuram on the main Prakara, and the inner Gopuram in the second or third Prakara. There seems to be one more Prakara outside, and which is missing. So these are the basic building blocks which are used in temples. In the next 3 or 4 days, we are going to discuss in depth. Vimanas we are going to cover 2 days. Mandapas we are going to cover 1 day. Gopuras and other things we are going to cover 1 day. So from tomorrow, we will be going deep into the structural components of Dravida temple architecture. So with this, we stop today's class. Since it is little extended, I taken up to 45 minutes and more. And now we can have a 15 minutes discussion session.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. It's a wonderful journey for all of us, not only for the Dravida temple, but the entire temple architectural heritage of India. So now there are a few questions in our chat box. Will we see, please, on it?
Yeah, I'll go through it one by one. Siddharth has asked one question. Can you repeat the name of the town in Deep South where monolith are found? So basically, when we talk about monolithic temples, in Tamil Nadu, it is available in only 2 locations. One in Mahabalipuram, where we have 9 monoliths of different types. These are done by Pallavas. Apart from that, we have one more monolith attempted by Pandyas near Tirunelveli. near Koilpatti. It is called Vetuan Koil. And it was a partial one. They started from top and up to the Prastara, they have stopped. So that is Siddharth. Shreyas. Evolution of temples, approximate timings we will cover later when we are coming to the dynasties, okay, where we talk with more timelines, because I don't want to confuse you with the too many parameters. So I was trying to give evolution from one parameter angle always. So hope it covers Shreya's question. PK asked about temple styles. What are the other temple styles beyond Dravida temples that are present in Tamil Nadu? In the Trichy as well as the Dharmaburi and other districts, some amount of Hoysala style temples are available, primarily because Hoysalas were ruling Trichy and Tiruvannamalai for some times during 15th century. So there is some impact. Dr. Lakshmi Ramasamy has an interesting question. Is Nagara shape have any connection to Sri Chakra? Sri Chakra is a combination of multiple shapes. Whereas if you see Nagara, it is primarily right angles. So Sri Chakra is a combination of all these characters. It is like a Belpuri. Combine different shapes and come up with a different character. PK has a question. Were temples always painted in color, or it is a recent phenomenon? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. I don't know who PK is. It will be helpful if they put the full name. We can understand the context. But anyway, Agamas have color definitions also for temple components. Okay. If you see in Tamil Nadu, you go and see any temple, it exactly looks the same color, same style, except the latest some of the renovation ones, because certain components, certain figures are supposed to be painted in certain colors only. The Indranil Bankapore, the question is that the reason to connect types of temple shapes with 3 gunas. So the gunas comes with the gods with which they are associated. So the moment you align it to Brahma, all the Brahma's characters and other associated stuff comes into this. Arun Prakash Raj, interesting question. Where else we can observe Dravida, Vesara? It is not Vyasara, it is Vesara, V-E-S-A-R-A, Vesara, and Nagara shapes individually. Anywhere you go, it is a combination of these shapes. Even here and the other side, you can observe. You go to Buddha Gaya temple also has got this kind of structures to a certain extent. And the Gavaksha motif and other things are a combination of this. Anita Bembe, I see your thing. Sometimes I am stepping back, and that might have created some confusions. I'll be careful. Thanks for the feedback. In between, the current went and it went into lower bandwidth. It might be a problem there. Siddharth, Pratima Lakshanas handle about all type of Pratimas, not only Shiva, Vishnu, and other icons and subsidiary guys. Saravanan has asked about the Kalasa, whether it indicates a dignity or prosperity of the ruler. No, this is an integral part of the temple. It is primarily, if you see the earlier ones, when we had the hut, we will discuss this in detail. The poles used to join on the top and the native style. So slowly This is where when they try to represent in a structured building, this becomes Kalasa. This is one of the aspects. Again, when it comes to ornamental, they got other uses and other things, botanical remains and other things. It is done, but again, we don't see a scientific validation for this. Arun Prakash Raj, when exactly was this basic plan of temple finalized? It was never finalized. Even now, it is not finalized. It keeps on evolving every century. Thank you, Nageshwar Rao and Kanchan Joshi for the appreciation. Sidhu, Bindu. Bindu has got a question. Again, it comes from her context. It will be challenging to identify load on monolithic temples. That is one of the areas where experience comes. If we analyze some of the monolithic temples, why it was left in the middle, primarily due to load issues. Example, Bhimaratha, it stopped because it started developing cracks. And some of the Mahendra caves also the same story. It started developing cracks or they found some fault in the rock. They clearly know that beyond that, no point in working. Shantini has got an interesting question. So the comparison to human chakra is not a proven fact. Okay. Whenever we identify certain comparison, these are all easy ways of remembering and then identifying the concepts, and then as the concept evolves. Okay, the concept of the Kodimaram or the Dojastamba or Balipida and other things are slowly evolved. Earlier they had only one temple, and then the Balipida is primarily the Dojastamba of God. Like that, there are, for all these expansions, there are some concepts and logics which evolved over a period. Nageshwara Rao asking a question about whether temple evolution commencing from Todahat or Nilgiris. No, this is the only picture I could easily identify and get it, and which has got a connect. Okay, if I find some time, I can still find some more older huts also. This is not. This is only a representation. It is at a basic level saying that from a hut it started to a very complex temple. Harish Srinivas. Temples were built for numerous reasons. There are some temples which are built as victory, and then there are certain idols which are meant for different purposes. Okay, not temples. The presiding idols, particularly in Vishnu and other things, Yoga Vishnu, Bhoga Vishnu, and then Abhichariga, Veera Vishnu. There are 4 categories, and depending on what purpose, the temple is built with the particular kind of idols. So when we study sculptures, we will go into these aspects. Thanks, Ramanujam, for the compliments. And he is asking about what are the salient features of Pallava temples. One full day is devoted to them, day number 6. So you will get to know all the details. And salutations from Suryakant, Aarti, and others, Dinesh, Vinayak sir, and Bindu Subramaniam asked a question whether we will be discussing about various material and techniques of construction. We'll be briefly covering wherever it is relevant on the material as well as the building techniques. But it is not at the masonry level, it is not at the architect level. This course is meant for the art appreciation. The objective is you understand how temples are built in a bigger picture and say that, wow, it is a good structure, it is differently done. That is what we can do. You are not going to construct temples, you are not going to define the new ways of doing temples. Arun Prakash Raj, very interesting thing I forgot to mention. Many of the agamas at that period are relevant for all the religions, whether it is Jaina, Buddha, or other things. The agamas are the structures. This is like to a great extent like an engineering science. So it is common for all the religions. There might be some icons or structures which are very specific to a particular religion. Other than that, most of the text is common for all agamas. You go to Bodhi temple, it is almost like a North Indian or South Indian temple structure. You go to any of the Jaina temple in Kanchipuram, they are built in the same way like Dravida temple in Kanchipuram. And appreciation from Avanti, Venkadeshan, Naresh, Vanajakshi, thank you, Shivalkar. Oh, so many appreciations. Good. So hope I have met the expectation on the first day. Any further questions are there? People can raise. Anybody else has raised? Mala Ram has asked a question. Is she there or left?
No one is here to asking. So now the questions are over. Yes, okay. So thanks a lot, sir. This is our, we can say once again, this is ice breaking session and it's really wonderful. So we are humbly thankful to you, and thanks to all the participants also for being with us up to the last moment. So thank you, and tomorrow we will meet again. So with the kind permission of Babu sir, we will stop here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So,
Yes, sir,
are there
please.
any activities for today end?
You can say as you wish, sir. It will our great pleasure if you will say something. Otherwise, you can share it in our group also, so that the participants will proceed accordingly.
Sure. See, listening to the thing is one aspect, and trying to put it as a notes as you understand is very good, so that over a period of time you get a fairly good documentation of how you understand temple architecture, which is written in your own way. This will help in the longer run to accumulate knowledge, and maybe down the line 2-3 years you will be doing a presentation like this. Okay, we look forward to more people coming into this and helping the heritage awareness. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Yes.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah. So for all the students, please be remember, not only the student but the scholars and the professors also. Please take daily notes. Please keep your pen and notebook with you so that you can take the notes, and please share with us. So it will be too great. And on last day, make a PDF file of all 7 days notes and please share it with us. I will share the same in our WhatsApp group also. So thank you and good night to all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good.